we gained our independence, we changed the name to the Independence Square. So every 6th of March, that was when we gained our independence. We celebrate the independence here. We celebrate the independence here because 1957, this gentleman Nkrumah led us into independence. And then on the day or the eve of the day, he said the independence of Ghana is meaningless until it is linked to the total liberation of Africa, because he believes that if Ghana alone gains its independence of all the African countries, they don't have their independence, we're going to suffer. So what he did was he wanted Africa to have a strong independence force. Everybody was started fighting against. We realized that a lot of African countries gained their day. So every 6th of March we celebrate the Independence Day here. The gentleman up there, soldiers who fought for the British, were not paid their compensation. As a result of that, they were marching to the seat of government. We'll see the seat of government. There's a building just behind this block. It is the Christiansborg Castle, built by the Danish. It was also used for the purpose of the slave trade. It's the biggest aside the Elmina Castle. And as a result of that, they were marching into that place because that was the seat of government then. And then 3 of them were shot. Some of them died after. The 3 died the same day. So we represent these gentlemen up there for all the soldiers who passed away, and they passed away after the struggle. So we call it the unknown soldier. And then we have this big pot here. That's where we light our perpetual flame. So every 6th of March, there's a parade here by the security service and students. And after they've done the march, the president of the country will come and light the perpetual flame to symbolize our Independence Day. So in brief, that is what I'll say here, and then we'll get to the other side. I'll also say different. Our independence anniversary.
Oh, okay.
It used to be called the Empire Ground, and then we changed it after independence 1997 to call the Independence Square.
Okay.
So every 6th of March, the president comes around, and then we have the parade of students and security service, and then we celebrate our independence, and then we have the perpetual flame pot where we light our pot, and then we have the unknown soldier for those who fought for us during our independence struggle as well.
Oh, wow, yeah. I like that. So this is like an arena.
An arena. And again, when one of your president came, Clinton, when he visited Ghana, this is where he was welcome. So you've gotten additional information that the others don't have.
Exactly. Thank you.
You're welcome. 1st of July 1961. The arch was put up purposely for our liberation, totally from the British, and it was unveiled by the Queen, the one who just passed away. The star on top was put up there later on. The construction was just the arch. The star was put up there later on. The reason is that when we gain our independence, we change our national flag from the British flag to our own flag. The red, gold, and green. And then we have the black star in the middle. The black star was a concept or an idea that was borrowed from Marcus Garvey's ideology of the Black Star Line movement, where he wanted black people to come back onto the continent. So our first president, as much as he is into this Pan-African movement, he introduced the Black Star into and he said this is going to be the home of all the black people. So that's why we have the Black Star on top. So we call this the Independence Arch. Recently, we had your vice president coming to Ghana, the lady, Kamala. When she came, and then she was supposed to speak to the public, this place was where they mounted the podium, and this is where he spoke with the Ghanaian public. So this place is very important for us in terms of our independence struggle and also our total liberation from the British administration. So at this point, we'll leave you to take your group pictures or individual pictures before we leave onto the bus. Okay.
So prior to 1957, when you walk into a government building, it'll be the Queen Elizabeth.
So yes, so prior to 1957, and also prior to 1961, when you walk into any government building, you will see prior to 1957 the Queen.
Right.
Prior to 1961, the Queen and the Prime Minister. And then after 61, we wash out everything. So you only see this gentleman's face on the walls of our government buildings.
Ghana, nurses on the move. Ghana 2023. Yay.
For our first president, he wanted Africa to have the African Union. So they have the Organization of African Unity. Now they call it African Union. They converge here for the meeting, and then they also have their residence. Now it's been converted into a parliament house. They also having some events, state events are also held here. The Pink Building is one of the biggest conference center that we have in Ghana. So in Ghana, we do our election every 4 years in January 7th.
Okay.
So they have like 1 month to do the transition from one government to the other. And what happened is that once you are elected, you have 2 terms opportunity. So if you run for the first 4 years and you are successful, you may go for the second year. And then the congressmen are also elected. They are also elected to go to Congress. But basically it's a 2-party state, let me put it. So you have like Republican and then the Democrats. So that is the kind of governance we have. The Nkrumah's party, which is more socialist party, they don't have representation now. Maybe coming this election, they may have maybe 1 or 2, but we only have 2 representatives when it comes to governance in this area.
How do you say it? The other party?
So we have the Democrats and the Republicans.
Okay, so it's the same.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know how to different names.
We used to have a socialist party, which is the Nkrumah's party, but now we don't have them anymore. Yeah.
So y'all had the same problem like Jamaica do with the Chinese buying out all the land and building on it?
Well,
I bet.
So we have Lebanese, we have Indians who were here way back before even independence, who have established their own businesses. Now we have the influx of Chinese. On the right hand side, we have the Rich Hospital. This used to be the European hospital. In the past, before independence, it is only Europeans that attend this particular hospital. Segregated. The whole of this area is European community. Now it's not. And the hospital is also not for Europeans anymore. It is for the general public. It's a regional hospital for the entire region of Ghana. So we've gone past the segregation time. So what I'm saying with the Indians and the Lebanese, they've been here for many years. So we have a lot of Indians that run restaurants, hotels. You have Lebanese that are doing the same. Most of the clubs that you will be visiting are run by Lebanese and Indians. And again, the Chinese have also come in. They are also buying properties. They are also building new apartments for themselves. They are building a whole community themselves. So when they come, what they do is that they bring in a lot of funds, and then whatever you offer or whatever you mention in terms of cost, they will pay. So they have a lot of funding that is supporting them to get properties here in Ghana. Because of the location, people may not be able to buy. So if you are buying a property around the rich area, not less than $1 million just for the land. So like where I live, in the past it used to be a farm. Nobody wants to even buy a land in that area. It's just like 5 minutes to the beach. Now, if you want to buy land in that area, it is not less than $200,000, just the land. So building a house in Ghana depends on the individual. Do you want to build a 2-bedroom apartment? Do you want to build a 5? Do you want to build 10? What is the features that you want to put in? What do you want the area to look like? All comes as a part of the cost that you factor in terms of what you want to build. So that is how it happens. I'll show you a community as we're driving on this road called Nima, where you'll be going tomorrow. Nima is a densely populated area. So they are using their frontage to build shops. Some of them, they cannot afford to build a shop. So they lease that particular frontage to the prospective builder, and then when the person comes in and the person is able to build, they take some part of the money. Sometimes they are giving just the room, like maybe 1 or 2 shops to frame some of the costs, then they can also rent it out. Some do just give it out outrightly, build and just run the business by yourself. So that is how it is. Yeah. The drums have entered into the church. Those days, it is only the priestess or the priest who wear beads on their anklets and also on their ribs, or in some ethnic groups. If you are a man and you are circumcised, you can be a chief or a king. In some places, you don't need to be circumcised. In some jurisdiction, when it comes to water or water bodies, there are places that if you are in your menstrual period, you don't get closer to that particular river, or you don't get closer to that particular deity or shrine, because they believe that during that particular period we are not clean. So if you look at this small circle, you could see some old part of the community, and then just when you go out of it, you see that there's people live here. This is how it looked to be before,
and then they start building.
And then they started building the new buildings on them. He has education in his hometown and then later transferred to Accra for his middle school or high school education. And then later he went to Pennsylvania for his university education. Apart from that, he was invited into this country to become the general secretary of a political party formed called the UGCC, or the United Gold Coast Convention. When he came, because of his involvement in the Pan-African movement in the US and also in UK, he wanted us to get our independence in the near future. Whilst those who he came to join wanted the independence in the long term. But he was like, we need it now. We don't need it in the long term because we have been intimidated or been impressed upon for a very long time. So we need our independence now. So he started having issues with the group. He broke away from the group, formed his own political party called the CPP. At that time, this compound is also one of the segregation compounds. It's called the Polo Ground, and they play polo here. If you are a black person, you are not allowed to come in here. I had one of my grandfathers who is a mixed race, is Vanderpool. He said they have a salad bar here. When he was talking to me as a kid, that this is where they come to sell salad, I didn't understand what he was talking about. So I grew up and started doing this job. Then I realized that yes, if you are not even an half caste or a mixed race person, you cannot even come on this park. So Kwame Nkrumah chose this place to break that chain of Africans not being able to go into their own space. So when he declared independence here, that was the time that everywhere that Europeans settled, you can walk in there without any permission. So 6 March 1957, we had our independence. And that was how come we've grown through this point. He became the leader of this country for only 9 years. Why? Because by the 9th year, the CIA of US have been able to connive with local soldiers and the security service to overthrow him. Again, the reason is that he's pushing so fast and African countries are gaining their independence from the Europeans and he's supporting them with everything that they need. So during his time as the president and the prime minister, all the civil rights activists in the US, this is a safe home for them. Maya Angelou was here, Malcolm X was here, Martin Luther King was here, Dr. Du Bois, George Padmore, all the big guys that you could talk about in the civil rights movement, Ghana became their home. And Nkrumah was giving them all the security that they need in life. Because once you get into Ghana, you are secure. Nobody can touch you. Even to the point that when South Africa was fighting for their struggle, Nelson Mandela came to Ghana purposely to come and seek support from Nkrumah so that he'll be able to bring his people to independence. And as a result of that, when the West saw that this is what this guy is doing, they planned several times. There have been times that they've thrown bomb at him at an event. And I know personally one person who was arrested for fighting Nkrumah. And again, because of his contribution towards our independence and also for the African struggle, that is the reason why when he passed away, not in Ghana, in Guinea, because when he was overthrown, he couldn't come back to Ghana. And this is how they do it. The UN have invited him to a peacekeeping mission to go and speak at the UN. And whilst he was at the UN, that was when the coup happened at his back. So he couldn't come back to Ghana. He went to Guinea. And they made him a co-president in Guinea. And as a result of that, he ruled in Guinea to 1972. And then he got sick, and that was when he passed away. So in Guinea, they buried him as a president. But they didn't put him on the ground. The mother was alive. So the mother decided that they wanted his son to come back. So there was another military government that came in, and they brought Nkrumah's body back to Ghana. And they had a state burial, but he was not also buried on the ground. He was also buried, laid, and balmed so people can view. 20 years after, the body started getting bad. So our president, one of our presidents, John Rawlings, decided that let's give him a befitting burial. So we took him from the metal casket into a wooden casket, and that is how he was buried. So he's buried over here at the mausoleum, and behind the mausoleum is his museum. And then where the statue is where he stood to declare Ghana's independence. So at this point, I will end. Once we move there, I'll just say a little bit and say a little bit there, and then we can go. Construction was done by the Chinese, that they used Italian marbles to do that. So exactly at this spot, that is where he stood to declare Ghana's independence. His finger pointing forward and his hand at the back, he said, forward ever, backward never. The reason is that during his time, that was when the Cold War was in his peak. And he said he never looked to the left or to the right. For him, if you want to have anything to do with him, and it's about the progress of Africa, he will stand up with you. If it's not, he moves forward and look for whoever he wants to be. So we designed this in his kente cloth. And then we have the 7 horn blowers. Traditionally, when a chief or a leader died, we have the horn blowers announcing the death. And also when he's going to the tomb, they also use the horn blowers to blow in front of him. But we made them to squat to show reverence to the gentleman because of his contribution towards Ghana and Africa. And the water that is flowing out, we say it is the life of Nkrumah, but because we have a saying that Nkrumah never died. Everything that he's done for this country still exists. All the projects that were under him, most of them are still exist. Most of them we sold them out because the West keep on telling us that we can't manage anything by ourselves, except when we give it to a private person. So the state have sold some of his things out, but they still have some of them in. We believe that once somebody dies, the person will come back again. So you cannot put the person in a metal casket, but you have to put the person in a wooden casket. Because once the wood decay, the body will come out, the spirit will also come out and move around and maybe have another person. So we transferred the body from where it was into this very wooden casket, and then he was buried here. So finally, he has been buried here. But one other thing is that when he was fighting for the African struggle, the Arab African were not much into whatever he's doing. So he needed to convince them. His best friend was Nasser from Egypt. And as a result of that, he went to Egypt and he found a beautiful woman that he married called Fatia Nkrumah. He had 3 children with them, 2 boys and a girl, Gamel, Sekou, and Samia. So when their mom passed away in Egypt, her wish was that she should be brought back to Ghana, wherever the husband is, to be buried next to the husband. So they brought the body back, and the body is buried. That's the tomb over here. So that's the tomb of the wife, Fatia Nkrumah.
The boys center. Like, I think I saw a picture.
President Nasser.
Yeah, I saw a picture
Yeah.
on the wall.
Yeah. Fatia Nkrumah.
Oh, she died too long ago.
Yeah.
27.
But Nkrumah had 1 child before he married this woman.
Oh,
And that the son is still, they are all alive. The 4 children are all alive. The oldest son is just a little older, like months older than this woman. So the son, who is the oldest son, yes, is still alive. He's called Francis Nkrumah. She's Egyptian. She's an Egyptian woman. So you know they're very light skinned. You know the Egyptian women are more light skinned.
Yeah, so this is the African man married her?
Come here.
The president, she's the first lady.
Oh.
Yeah.
Look at this one?
Yes, of this one.
But that was the first wife, no?
No, that was the second wife.
That's the
Well,
way
we
he
all
said it like
okay.
that.
I'll talk about. We'll talk much about the Egyptian connection maybe when we are on the bus.
Okay.
We are the original owners of Egypt, and not the people who are there now. Those who are there are visitors. They are not the original owners of Egypt.
What's that last word?
She's saying that why should he have to be a married light-skinned Egyptian woman? I'm saying that the original indigenous people of Egypt are black people and not the light-skinned people. The pyramids were not built by those white people. They were built by black.
They all came from
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so let's move up here. Destroy most of the statues and properties in town, like they did in Libya. So for him, this statue was just across the street, and when he broke it down, the head was vanished. Till 2009, when somebody brought the head back to the park. So this is the original head statue, and that's it. In those days, even when you hold a book that Nkrumah wrote, you'll be arrested for that. He's the only African president that have been able to write about 11 books. And all his books are relevant to date. All the books he wrote, the neo-colonization of Africa, the African military, the Congo Basin and everything are still relevant today because he wrote things that could even see about 200 years from today. So those days, you don't have to hold anything that is in Nkrumah. Even I can't, like this t-shirt, I can't even wear it in public. I'll be arrested for that. So we always say that maybe if the arm is in maybe one of your grandmother's wardrobe, please, when you go back to the States, you can dedicate it back to the park. And then we can have it and place it somewhere else here. So that's why you have these two separated, just to tell what happened during his stay. Once we go in here, it's all self-explanatory. It's written, some of his statements, like this very one here, some of the statement that he made whilst he was in public life are all here. So we're going to walk through and then you read a statement by him. And now you understand the kind of person he is. Okay, so let's walk in.